Good morning, everyone. So today I want to talk to you all about a category of tea. It's our best-selling category of oolong. It is a green oolong, and oolong is probably one of the best-selling categories of tea that we sell, just because it's really good, but also it's a big aspect of our why we're in the business in the first place. I got into the tea business because I fell in love with the tea from Taiwan, and probably the tea that the oolong that I first became most familiar with was green oolong. And it's really popular for many reasons, honestly. It's one of the reasons is it's just really good. Um, it's similar to green tea in that it's light and refreshing, but it's a lot more. I would say that people enjoy it generally more than green tea because, like, green tea will tend to have a grassy and sometimes bitter aspect. Green oolongs tend to be more slightly sweet naturally and a little bit more floral. So typically, yeah, somebody that wants to like green tea hasn't found one they like when I introduce them to green oolong, or even if they do like green tea, when we introduce them to green oolong, that category, it's really widely accepted. Green oolong, what is it? What it is and not? So let's talk about that. So basically, oolong, just generally, is the range of tea between green tea and black tea. So you can have a really lightly oxidized tea, and that is an oolong that didn't undergo that indoor withering step where it is allowed to basically change from green to brown. That, or green to red, we should say, probably, it's more accurate. That step, the indoor withering step, is a lot shorter with the green oolong, so that the there isn't a lot of oxidation. The tea doesn't have a lot of time to change in processing from, say, a green tea to a black tea. That is the step that determines like how close or to green or how close to black tea is the tea going to be, that withering step. So that withering step is shorter, the oxidation that occurs is minimal, and anything, we tend to talk about oxidation in terms of, from least to most, or what, and in terms of percentages. So anything sort of under 10% oxidation might be considered a green tea, whereas if it's 10% or more, then that's where it starts to become oolong. To about 70%, then that's where about black tea starts. So from 11% to 65%, say, is oolong. That's a huge range, right? That's one of the fun things about oolong, is it is this huge range. Now, what is green oolong? Well, green oolong is that more like 11 to 25% oxidation, plus or minus. I'm just sort of guessing there on that range, but that degree of oxidation. And then another aspect that can enter into sort of determining the what specific type of oolong it is the roast. And so all tea is roasted in a sense, with the oolong production, but the degree of roast they talk about in terms of degrees of fire. So a low roast would be something like what's called a 1 degree of fire. And so typically things that we call green oolong are oolongs that you can't really taste a roasted flavor. So that if once you start to taste the roasted flavor, then that becomes a different category, what we call roasted oolong. So green oolong, less oxidized, less roasted, and therefore, it has more of a green gold color, like this tea here. This is a high mountain green oolong from Ali Shan. But yeah, so this color, sort of a greenish gold. A lot of times when you pour this tea and you share this tea with your friends, you they it will seem it looks like a green tea. It almost tastes like a green tea. It has a green tea kind of a note to it, but like I said, it tends to be less astringent and more towards floral, and more sometimes it'll have a tropical fruit or a different kind of fruit notes to it, but it's basically just like a bit sweeter and a bit more floral. Generally really easy to enjoy, just super pleasant. And also another fun thing about it is it will tend to have, depending on other characteristics like what cultivar it is or how it was processed or whatever, it can be a bit buttery in the texture, or it can be creamy in the texture. And that's another thing that is really fun about it. So within the category of green oolong, there is one big distinction, and that's whether the tea is a high mountain tea or not. Now, high mountain tea is tea that is grown at an elevation of 1,000 meters or above, and I believe we did do a video on high mountain tea. It's something like 3,573 feet or something. I forget, but regardless, is that when tea grows at that high elevation, that creates when tea grows at that high elevation, that creates a level of stress on the tea plant, and therefore the stress makes the tea grow slower, and that's considered desirable in terms of tea. The tea grows slower, the leaf is thicker, but high mountain oolong is amazing, but it doesn't mean that lower elevation oolongs aren't amazing. There's some incredibly amazing incredibly amazing lower elevation oolongs as well. So high mountain versus not high mountain, but that's just one distinction within the green oolong category. Now, green oolong is often designated by cultivar and or growing location. So, for example, Wenshan Baozhong, right? That is the style of oolong, green oolong, that is grown in the northern Taiwan, and around what do they call that? Pinling, or Shizhou, the Stone Mountain. No, wait, Shizhou is Alishan. I think it's Shiding or something like that. And it's the Taipei Xian, the Taipei County, around there, that whole area. They grow a lot of this twisted leaf, really lightly oxidized oolong known as the Wenshan Baozhong. It's delicious. It has a specific aroma, flavor, mouthfeel that makes it just really desirable, especially when you get a good one. And then, so that's one style. There's like Ali Shan, famous for green oolong, uh, Shanlin Shi, Li Shan. Those are all the high mountains. Those are different high mountain areas that grow green oolong. Lugu, green oolong. Dongding, you can get a green dongding. There's all kinds of areas, and then there's the cultivars, right? Like, so you have Four Seasons like spring. You have the jade cultivar. You have the what are the other cultivars? Gene Shred, the golden lily, and then you have the original, like, or somewhat OG oolong from Taiwan, which is the green heart. Uh, and so a lot of times in Taiwan, which is where green oolong first took off and became popularized, because what happened there was that in the older days, people didn't drink green oolong as much. It just wasn't as what the farmers or what tea producers were making. They made more stuff like the roasted, really hearty, really full body oolongs. And the reason being is partly because by doing that, it was a way to preserve the flavor of the tea for a longer period of time. And at that time, too, there wasn't the innovation of the vacuum seal and the mylar bags that seal the tea. This is unsealed, obviously. I already broke into this, and I was just looking around to see if I have a sealed one. But you guys can check out. I mean, we have a lot of videos that feature sort of our sealed tea. And what that does is when you have a green oolong and you vacuum seal it, you can preserve the flavor and the freshness for an extended period of time, where the tea, it won't change. It will change, but it will change very slowly, almost unnoticeable. And while there is nothing like the very, very fresh oolong that was just produced, like, say, a week ago or a month ago, but this type of technology in those olden days, it just wasn't available. So it was kind of pointless to produce a green oolong in that time. Then the second factor that really drove the green oolong sort of popularity in Taiwan was the sort of the consumer driven aspect, where consumers were wanting green tea in a sense for health benefits. And so the consumer was kind of, and also this flavor, I think, is just very widely pleasant. It's just widely received. It's just so nice in terms of its freshness and the way it makes you feel, like, especially on a sunny day like today, if you drink some green oolong, it just matches the weather. It makes you feel good. It puts you in a good mood. So yeah, I mean, I think that when the old, like when I used to tell this story, that it was I would talk about that it was in the 80s, there was a big push from the consumer. They wanted the green oolongs in Taiwan, and with those high mountain grown green oolongs, it just really became, all these variables working together, it just became very widely received. So yeah, it became super popularized and it took off. Green oolong. And what else about green oolong can we tell you guys? Qing fa xiao, right? It's a lightly oxidized. In Taiwan, they always say fa xiao, which means fermented. But we've had this discussion so many times in the tea house, it's really hard for me to either understand or explain. But basically, that it's oxidized is how we talk about it in the West. Because when you talk about fermentation, there's alcohol as a byproduct. Now, maybe there is a little bit of fermentation, like a little bit, like a teeny bit, so much so that we can't, that the alcohol might just evaporate or what. But also, too, I'd say in Taiwan, it became slightly popularized to say yanghua, which is oxidation. This oxidation also is used when we talk about tea production. But regardless, is that this style of tea, it's, yeah, my favorite way to describe it or call it is green oolong. What was really annoying for a small period, a blip in time here in the tea world, was that I forget which company it was, but they started to popularize the term blue oolong. And they did that because green tea was already taken as far as the colors go, right? It's sort of like black tea, the whole black tea conundrum, where we talk about black tea as black tea. Well, in Chinese, that's actually called red tea, hong cha. But in Taiwan, in America, it became known as black tea. And the problem with that is that there is another category of tea in China called black tea, hei cha, right? Now, so we call that dark tea, black tea, green tea, yellow tea, white tea, red tea. Red tea can sometimes refer to rooibos, but also hong cha, like I said in Chinese, black tea. But the other thing is that red oolong is another category like that, roasted or more oxidized oolongs, even the formosas, those tend to be referred to as red water oolong. I know it's dongding too, but that's beside the point. These more oxidized, more roasted oolongs, they tend to be referred to as red. So what I'm trying to say here, and I know I'm just rambling on, but the colors are the way that these teas are known, especially in the West, and that's why some person that we won't say bad things about decided to call it blue. Now, what the confusing thing is this word qing in Chinese is often used to describe blue. This blue, qing cha, they call this qing cha, qing oolong, like green oolong. But okay, so what this word qing, let me see if I can find it. This color, it's most often used to describe this color, this type of blue that's often used on porcelain. Okay, this is qing. Okay, and then I was trying to get to the bottom of this, and then I was like, this can't be the way they're translating qingta, this color for blue. It can't be right. And then lo and behold, someone looks up in this conversation in Taiwan, tea master, and says, but when we're talking about tea, qing doesn't mean blue, it means green, like the back of a frog. Qinghua, probably got the tones wrong. It's been a long time since I've been in Taiwan and a long time since I've really been speaking Chinese. But regardless, anyway, that qing can be blue or green is the way that that's translated. But when we're talking about tea, it's green. Now, I totally got off on this rant, and I didn't necessarily mean to do that. What I'm really trying to talk to you guys about is green oolong.